Hello, everyone, and welcome back. We are here with Cicero Holmes. Hello.
Yes. Oh, the audience loves him.
Usually they're throwing rotten vegetables when they hear my name.
No, we've got confetti.
Yes.
Pyrotechnics.
Yes.
Applause signs flashing in our faces.
Absolutely.
How are you doing?
Doors are opening and closing. I am doing great. Thanks for asking. Thanks for having me. It is a wonderful day in the Chicagoland area. We just had a wicked bundle of storms that raced through and flooding, so I didn't get washed away. So,
and flooding too.
That's
nice.
good. That's good.
Probably check on my in-laws, I guess.
We had some crazy thunderstorms too in Seattle, which
weird,
never happens
for Seattle.
here.
Yeah, it just rains there. It doesn't. Yeah, you don't get lightning and the thunder.
I think the god of thunder has been visiting us. So
and I think he likes it.
Thor
here.
4 is being filmed here, confirmed.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. There you go.
Nice. So people may know you on this here D&D community as being a part of Rivals of Waterdeep.
Yeah, that is a thing I do. I am one of the Rivals of Waterdeep, right here on twitch.tv/D&D Sundays at noon Central, 10 a.m. Pacific.
Ooh, wow.
And
thank you for converting.
Time zones.
Yeah, time zones.
Yeah.
And I think you had done some D&D or RPG play ahead of playing with Rivals, or were you completely brand new?
I am completely brand new. In fact, I had never rolled anything larger than a 6-sided die before.
Wow.
How does this happen? How do you go from never playing to be like, I'll be on your live stream?
Right. I'll be on your live stream in LA in front of a live audience playing for the first time.
How does this happen?
So everything comes back around to the seminal 1989 movie Batman from Tim Burton, and Jack Nicholson, who played the Joker, said it's all about trust, and that's what it was really all about. It was really all about trust and trust in Tanya to pass. In Tanya we trust. Tanya was I guess approached by Greg. Greg is if we are a sitcom or if we're a show, Greg is like Charlie from Charlie's Angels, and we are all his angels.
Yes, that's a great example. I love that.
But Greg approached Tanya about getting some people specifically in the Midwest, and hopefully some people of darker hues to get together and play Dungeons and Dragons. And she approached me and some other people, and we got together with another group of people, and we kind of formed like a boy band and created the Rivals of Waterdeep, and it has been harmonious music ever since. I am so happy. And one of the things that I'll say is that I was always aware of Dungeons and Dragons, and growing up I had heard about it, but I didn't really know anybody who played. And I'd always considered myself a nerd, but D&D was a level of nerddom that even I was kind of, I guess, like I was shunning for whatever reason. And, I couldn't be more upset with myself for having done so for so long, because it is so much fun. It is so brilliant. I am having a blast with my castmates. It is just a great experience. And the more I walk around and talk about D&D, the more I run into people who play or who had played in the past and really want to play again. And, and you can see the light and the joy in their eyes when they talk about it.
Yeah.
That is true. If you ever want to meet some really nice people, you either go to Target and wear a red shirt.
Yes.
Or
I've done that.
You wear a D&D t-shirt anywhere. Yes. And you will meet people will come to you. There's never a time. I always say, like, Quinn and I will be out running errands. I'm like, watch. at least 3 strangers are going to come up to mommy today. And they do. Like they're just like, oh my God, you play D&D, or I love D&D, or and then they start telling about their campaign, or like, oh, Dungeons and Dragons, I'm trying to get my kid into that.
Yeah.
It's like, it's amazing.
Yeah, and to your point, like I feel like there were a lot of people who didn't talk about it so openly, even if they were fans, because of that, the shunning or the idea that you can't necessarily be as honest about that. But that seems to be completely wiped away at this point.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it was, I mean, so over the last, I don't know, 5-10 years, it's become more and more cool to be a nerd. But I feel like the last barrier of nerddom that became cool, was D&D. And I think it kind of coincided with 5e, with the release of 5e and the accessibility of 5e, that allows players, if they hadn't played in a long time and they're able, they come back and recently, to see that it's a lot easier to come in and kind of hit the ground running. And for players such as myself, who had never played before, 5e has been a godsend for me and my ability to acclimate to the rules and the systems and feel like I'm proficient enough and confident enough in the game itself to want to become a dungeon master on a live stream after a year.
That we definitely are going to dig into that, because I read that and I was like, what? That's crazy. But also it was crazy that you got into D&D on a live show. Like, I'm going to play this game. But going back to what you were just talking about, a lot of people, more people are playing now, or there's the stigma is kind of being erased, is due largely in part to what you and the Rivals of Waterdeep are doing, and all of the other streamers out there, is people can see it being played. And before, there was such a mystery about this game because, well, it's not a board game.
Right.
There are no meeples. Like, I don't understand how this is a game.
Right.
But now, like, people can actually sit and watch that. It's just people having fun around the table and getting, really getting that enjoyment out of just being together.
Right.
Which is clear.
And that's a thing that, as we become more disassociated from human connections, via the internet, and a lot of the conversations that we have are digital. Being able to kind of unplug in a way and sit down and I come from the video game world, so there was always this talk about the lost art of the couch co-op game, the local co-op game where you and your buddies sit down next to each other and you get to sit and play. That has gone away and now it's an online game. Your buddy will come over to your house and go into another room and plug up a TV so that the two of you can play together. Being able to sit at a table, look someone in the eye and interact with them and use your imagination is something that that we've kind of lost a little bit, and I'm glad that it's coming back and the way that it is.
Yeah, and that's a good point.
You were mentioning, because we definitely want to delve into dungeon mastering, because that's really exciting for season 5 of Rivals of Waterdeep, starting on September 22nd. You will be taking the reins. Very excited about that. But before we get onto that, when you were talking about getting into playing for the first time, I'm curious to what it's like as a newcomer. Because I had definitely played, some. I had first edition books that I had read. I played some 3.5 and fourth and fifth. So I always had these touchstones of knowing how it went. But I'm really curious as someone, because you and I think have a lot in common. We both have done some stand-up comedy and performance of that nature, as well as our love of Star Trek is very similar. So having that blind spot for Dungeons and Dragons, what was it like getting into it for the first time, and what was it about just even seeing those books that newcomers, I think, could benefit from your experience? Yeah,
so I think one of the great things, or at least for me, was that I had experience with some improv, with stand-up, with theater. So that helped me with the role play aspect, that helped me with the improvisation aspect of it. The other thing that I had was lots of video game experience, playing lots of RPGs. So I understood the concepts that were, that the RPGs had, that they drew from Dungeons and Dragons. So being able to see those things on the page, it wasn't as foreign to me as maybe I expected it to be. And so that was pleasant. And the, the other part of it was that it just, I was prepared for it to be so much more number crunchy, so much more nerdy, push my glasses up than it ever was. And when I saw that it wasn't, when I saw that it was, oh, okay, well, here are your stats, here are your different attributes, here, you rolled your dice, you here as you're building your character, here are the different things that you have, and because your number is above whatever the threshold is, you gain an attribute boost of +2 for these different attributes. And I looked at it as, oh, that kind of makes sense. And then as I started to read through spells and understand different pieces of the lore, it all started to fall into place. It really was one of those memes where, like, you take the limitless pill and you see all the numbers and they're all just kind of falling into place. It really did. It kind of came to me and it spoke to me in a way that I wasn't expecting it to.
I think you're right. I mean, when people say, like, what is the reason why D&D is so popular right now? I mean, the streaming is a big part of it. People are able to see it happen, so they have that frame of reference. But it is that other parts of our culture have grown in popularity that drew from Dungeons and Dragons. So all those pieces were all there, and it wasn't as big of a step as you thought it was going to be. It's. I mean, I've been watching a lot of Harry Potter recently, just because my kids are getting into the books again and the movies. And I'm like, man, the popularity of this series, as well as Lord of the Rings, 15 years ago or 18 years ago, however long it was, right when those were coming out, laid a lot of the groundwork for people to latch onto things that used to be for the fringes, but all of a sudden we're mainstream. Right.
Yeah, there was now you have sections in school libraries that are like the fantasy section of a library is huge, because the Harry Potter, and then all of the books that spawned off of Harry Potter, or anything that's about dragons or wizards or anything now. Right. That's well, look, I mean, wasn't there before.
Right. Look at all of the media that we consume. So, it started at the turn of the century with Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter. And now we just had a movie make $2 or $3 billion that was, based on comic books, based on comic books, and people have been watching 22 movies over the last 10 years to sit and watch the culmination of this. You've got Dark Crystal coming back after 35 years on Netflix, and then Amazon's got some crazy show with fairies and ogres and Orlando Bloom being beautiful. Like, all of those things again are. Yeah, right, exactly. Damn it! When does he age?
He's an elf. He'll live forever.
Yeah.
Damn, Legolas. All of those things are it really is kind of the perfect storm of geekdom and nerdy culture, just rising to the top. The cream always rises to the top, and I think the most delicious, the sweetest of creams is the nerdy cream that is D&D.
Yeah. Yes, I think part of it also, maybe it's a little anecdotal just for the people that we hang out with, but a lot of people like you, Greg, that have been playing, you've played D&D for a long time, and now you have kids and you want to expose your kids to that. Yeah. And now when parents are showing their kids at a very young age, or they're just growing up around these books, or they're growing up around dice, or they're growing up watching this game that their parents play, it's just it's just part of life for them. Anything that you expose to a kid that early just doesn't become a big deal to them later on. They'll just be like, of course we play Dungeons and Dragons. Yeah. Right. Yes, it's like family dinner,
Exactly. And I'm at the point now where I'm trying to get my family into playing D&D. That essentials kit that just came out at your local Target.
Everywhere
Now
now.
available everywhere.
Yeah, available everywhere now. But I want to pick that up so that I can get everyone playing. My 11-year-old nephew who lives down in Kentucky was in summer camp, and one of him and his friends designed a game because he knew that I was playing Rivals of Waterdeep. So yeah, I mean, just all of those things that are happening kind of as a result of like, you know, the excitement that I get, Gesundheit, the excitement that I get from playing, that is infectious, and you know, and I try and become an evangelist for this game in a way that it wasn't evangelized for me, or in a way that even if it was evangelized for me, I wasn't going to listen. So
Shunned it.
And I love that now you're wanting to jump into creating that story as the dungeon master for season 5. What was your decision making tree for that?
So we decided kind of organically early on that we were going to have rotating DMs for Rivals. Everyone gets a season. Whoever wants to be the DM can go ahead and throw their hat in the ring. And Carlos was our DM for our first season and a half, 2 seasons, and Carlos Luna was brilliant. He's just all my castmates. As we talk about my cast, I will say incredibly complimentary things about them because I love them dearly and I think they're incredibly talented. But Carlos was just a phenomenal DM. And he really pushed us through the gamut of emotions. But at the end of our second season, he was, he said, you know what, guys, I think I just don't have the time to do this anymore. Can someone else be the DM for our upcoming season if we get one? And Sharif Jackson, who's a dear friend of mine, jumped right up and said, yeah, I'll do it. And Sharif had played a couple of role-playing games, some pen and paper games before we started doing Rivals, but he hadn't played D&D before. So he was just as fresh, actually fresher in terms of deciding to take over the reins as a dungeon master when he decided to do it than I am right now. And he did it, and he did a marvelous job. And one of the things that I think is beautiful about the fact that we're doing these rotating DMs is that everyone gets a chance to tell their own story, and they tell their own story in their own way, in their own words, and it's the story is a machination of their mind. So while we're playing with the same characters, we're getting unique types of stories from these different DMs. So Sharif's was a crazy romp through Waterdeep, and with tons and tons and tons of puzzles. And then season 4 was with the incredibly talented Serena Marie as our dungeon master, and she started with a goofy Scooby-Doo mystery in Troll Skull Manor, and then it turned into a time traveling heist, and we wound up in Avernus.
Oh.
Yeah, and so I decided. I think I decided pretty early on that after Serena's season that I would take the reins, and give it a shot. And I'm really excited. I'm just really happy that it worked out this way. That we're not going to be in Waterdeep anymore. We're going to be in Avernus to coincide with the release of the Avernus handbooks. So I'm really happy excited and nervous and anxious to bring our group of rivals into the 9 hells beyond Baldur's Gate and see what the River Styx tastes like.
You're gonna have a fun one.
We were just talking about all the cloud of fingernails that will be raining down upon them. Horrible things
and personal hells for your players.
Yes.
So you went into this all the way back in the beginning,
yes,
knowing that this was going to be a live stream. This is a game that you weren't familiar with, and that eventually you were going to be asked to be a dungeon master. And you were like,
pretty early on. You know, the first two parts of that I was definitely aware of. You know, the live stream. I've always been a performer, so that part never bothered me. You know, it's just you know, when you're a theater kid, you know, you perform this. The theater.
Yay for theater kids.
Yay.
Yes, right. You know, so you perform the same way for one person as you do for a million people. And so, you know, the fact that it was a live stream and there would be people watching was never something that bothered me. The thing that I was more nervous about was making sure that I got the rules down and I did all of the things right, because I was such a neophyte to playing the game. But then, you know, once I kind of got the hang of that, it was just, you know, making sure that the character is right and you know, the goofy voices that I wind up doing are consistent and good, and you know, really help people immerse them in the story that we're telling and the characters that we inhabit. And then, you know, now I'm doing that times 1,000, because, you know, I'll be the DM. So instead of just doing one goofy voice, I'll be doing many goofy voices.
Multiplied by millions. What do you have any previews you can give us, or what is going to befall the characters in the Avernus, or how you're adapting the printed adventure for your dramatic telling?
Yeah, well, there are infernal war machines. They exist. So they will definitely
confirming it now.
Yes.
You heard it here.
They will play a part in our season, as well as the fact that we're going to hell, and, you know, hell is a place where not so great people come to not rest after they've been struck down in the mortal plane. And during the course of our 4 seasons, we've struck down a few people. So there is a chance that some past residents and rivals to our rivals they show up in our 5th season.
That's super cool. I think that's such a great idea, to be able to bring back, you know, past villains that they have contended against. So that's gonna be super fun. Have you done any like rehearsal dungeon mastering sessions?
Only as by happenstance. So there were 2 episodes during the course of our series so far
that you jumped in, right?
Yeah, where the DM was not going to be available that particular week. So I actually stepped in and did the DMing. And those were incredibly fun, and those were the things that kind of gave me the confidence to say, yeah, I can go ahead and do this. The one difference between what I'll be doing this season and what happened in those two guest spots were that basically the story was given to me, and all I had to do was kind of, you know, fill in the blanks and allow the players at the table to help me paint the picture. You know, one of the things that I've said on a bunch of panels about being a DM is when you're a DM, you're Bob Ross, but the people at the table are your arms, and you may want to paint a pretty mountain, but they're deciding to paint clouds, and then you've got to describe how wonderful those clouds are.
Oh my God!
As the DM,
that's so good.
That is really good. But now I'm imagining like a Bob Ross monster.
That's what I'm like.
With your arms on it, and you're like,
happy little trees.
It sounds like he's nice and friendly, but he's actually.
I like it.
Kill me.
So I was able to. I was able to present their version of the pretty mountain, and watch the players at the table turn those into clouds and just have to describe those. But now I'm going to have to create those mountains, and hope that they continue to get built as mountains, but always be prepared to
for happy little trees.
Happy little trees, absolutely. Another thing that I said at a panel was, don't be married to your story, be married to your table.
You are profound.
Hey, I try to do this. I am Cicero after
all. He's got a poet's brain.
Yeah, absolutely. It's yeah, I mean, so those are the things that I'm constantly thinking about as I'm trying to construct the story and get it ready and make it good. That's the real thing that I'm worried about, is because the DMs that have come before me, that's sat in the seat that I'll be sitting in, were just so good, that I just want to be half as good as they are, and so I'm working on making sure that everything comes out and sounds good, plays good, is descriptive, is visceral in the right ways, is funny, is emotional. I'm gonna try my best to play with a lot of different emotions, and be very evocative.
That's the way to do it. That's awesome. Yeah. So I know Shelley has been reluctant to get back behind the Dungeon Master screen. What advice would you give people who feel that pressure a little bit too much, right, and encouragement to them?
You just got to do it. You just got to do
See,
it.
That's what I've been saying.
I mean, look, you can be afraid. There are so many things in our lives that we've been afraid of doing because there's this fear of the unknown. And then you do it and you're like, oh, that wasn't so bad. Not only was it not so bad, I really enjoyed it. I want to do it again. And it, and then you look back at your past self and you're like, well, why the hell was I so afraid of doing it in the first place? What was all that trepidation? It just do it. YOLO.
Let's get some more pithy phrases on there. Yeah,
exactly. Like it's the worst. It's the best phrase that has been just run into the ground to the point where you can't use it anymore. But like, you really do. You only live once, so just go out and do it.
Yes. Are you convinced?
Shelley, stop being scared.
I don't know. I mean, you have excellent advice, and I know that if I were to try it again, it's not going to be on a live stream. It's probably not even going to be with people who know how to play D&D, because I don't want them to know what I don't know. It's probably going to be with kids.
Yeah.
Then your success rate has increased exponentially.
I have removed a lot of obstacles just with that. Do you think it's easier to DM for a group that you're already very familiar with, and that part, yes, but people who are already really familiar with the game?
It's going to be the thing that is making me feel better about doing this is the fact that I'm doing it with my castmates, because I trust them implicitly.
Yeah.
And I trust that if there is a point where I start to stumble, they will be right there to pick me up. So I think that's important.
Yeah. I guess that's the fear. Like, I know there would be parts where I did stumble, and I think that's like, I will just fall apart. Yeah. Because I don't want it to be their job to have to pick up their dungeon master.
But that is the job of the thing. It's maybe there is, it's less.
I think I've always just had really good DMs.
Well, maybe, but I think there is something about the table idea that Cicero is talking about, where it's less of a one-way street where the dungeon master is always telling the story, right? Like it is a collaboration, and even when you talk about how the not knowing the rules, I don't know the rules. I mean, I know most of them, but like right. As a dungeon master, if I don't know it, you have to have the confidence to make it up, or to right. rely on your I don't remember. Do you know what it is? And then all of a sudden you just proceed from there. And I think what's more important is almost having that kind of mom or dad or parent, like, not control, but like you're managing the meeting. right?
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
like you're the one who's leading the agenda. It doesn't mean that everything that you are doing needs to come from you, but you're stage managing.
Right.
And as long as you're doing that, it doesn't matter if you're the expert on every single little thing.
Right.
Maybe.
Right?
Very much so. And the other thing to remember is these handbooks are guidebooks. They're not
Yes.
they're not rule books.
Right.
And if there are things that you want to do in your adventure at your table that aren't, to the letter of the rules that someone else determines are the rules, then who cares?
Yeah.
It's really about you guys at the table having a great time.
Yes. Actually, a friend was just telling me about his D&D game, and that the dungeon master doesn't want to break any rules. He literally wants to play by the book.
Yeah.
To the point where the players are like, come on, like, loosen up. Let us have some fun. You have to have the freedom to like mix things up or use your own judgment. And he's like, well, then we're not playing Dungeons and Dragons. Like the only way to play D&D is to play literally with the rules. And I said, but that's the one thing I've always heard from the people who make the rules. You don't, there's no rules. Like the only rule is to have fun and just read the table. So I actually had asked Jeremy to write this guy a note.
Jeremy Crawford. You give him a note. You're like, here, this is from the lead designer of the rules.
Yes. So Jeremy, I thought Jeremy was just going to be like, oh, sure, don't play by the rules. Signed, Jeremy Crawford. But Jeremy was like super thoughtful and wrote this really nice supportive note that was like, the only rule is to have fun and to make memories and, to guide your players. Please, you don't have to take any of this, as the law. It's just a guide. You're the dungeon master. You're in charge. Yeah. It was so nice. And I sent it off to, it's actually Rob Davio. So
really?
I sent it. You have to put it in the mail, but I took a picture of the note. I'm like, look at what Jeremy wrote. And he was like, oh my God, this is amazing.
Well, and what's even funnier is like, I'm really glad Jeremy wrote that, like, larger explanation, but a version of that is in the 5th edition rule books.
It really is.
Where it says the only thing that matters is what the dungeon master is going to adjudicate at the table.
Yes.
And I was going to say that there was, back in the early days when the term dungeon master wasn't used widely, the term that was used was judge. It was the person who was interpreting the rules at the table, right? Sure. And that's really what you have to do, because the rules, especially in something as new as a role-playing game was back then, you can't cover every single corner case. There's going to be things that pop up that are not, there's not a rule explicitly or even a guideline explicitly written about it. So you had to interpret what the intention of the game would be, right? And so that's what a dungeon master is doing from 1974 to now, each time at the table.
So, but a lot of that. Oh, go on. So,
no. I was just going to say that I'm having an old man moment as Greg was talking about the judge. I'm just imagining Mills Lane at a table adjudicating some rules. And,
I was thinking Harry from Night Court.
I went
really,
there too. Judge Judy.
Judge Judy, yeah.
I'd love to see her play. But I think like when you're talking about like being like the definitive answer on like maybe like a misinterpretation of a rule, or like this isn't clear, I'm not sure what to do, I think that's different than just people understanding you can literally make up your own rule. Like I'm thinking about like when Chris Perkins DMs and like D&D Live, when he was DMing that the game,
and he made up double disadvantage.
Double disadvantage. He made up double disadvantage. He made up all sorts of stuff during that game, and I actually was like, okay, I'm kind of starting to feel like I'm starting to get this.
Yeah. And
that is like you can be in a world where your players cast a spell and you're like, magic doesn't work here. Okay,
for whatever reason,
there's a rule now in here, and I don't have to tell you why that's a rule or why. I mean, maybe eventually you'll figure it out, but you can do anything.
Well, I mean, that's the point, right? Like the beauty of this game and the reason that I've taken to it so well is that you use your imagination. Like that is your greatest tool, is your imagination. And to say, oh, well, here's a book and we can't deviate from this book, removes the greatest tool that I have in my toolbox, which is my imagination.
Yeah.
I grew up as an only child. I've got 2 younger sisters. Shout out to Sarah, whose birthday was yesterday.
Happy birthday,
Happy
Sarah.
She'll never see this.
You could tell her that
Right.
2 strangers wished you happy birthday.
I'm sure she
But
feels
so
it right now in her heart.
My baby sister, or my middle sister, is 11 years younger than me, and my baby sister is 11 years younger than her.
Wow.
So I
Oh,
was
wow.
a grown man by the time my baby sister Sarah was born. So I grew up an only child, playing with myself, or playing by myself.
Perhaps both.
Whatever.
But yeah, right. But the key in both of those things was that I had to use my imagination.
And that's the greatest tool.
Right.
Wait.
Wait.
Exactly.
Come on.
I mean, I agree with you. I think there is, if you remove that, it doesn't come down. But I also will say, and this is true for Jeremy in the way he's expressed it to me too, is that, you want to have to follow your bliss. You have to follow what makes sense for both you as the dungeon master, but also for your table. Like if your table is of the way that some players are, where they like a more simulationist type game, where they want it to follow a certain programmatic away, and that is where they get their fun out of it, then it's about finding the right flavor of game for the players and the dungeon masters. And I think that's what's really an interesting growth in the way the Dungeons and Dragons community is shown right now, is because if you started playing when you were in the 80s or whatever, and you might have tried to play once, and you're like, oh, this dungeon master is very restrictive about what happens.
Yeah.
It's only by what's in the book, and that's the way his group works. That might not be a newcomer's bliss, and you might be like, well, that's how all D&D is, so I'm not going to play anymore. But what happens now, because there is so much streaming, there's lots of podcasts that have different flavors and different dungeon masters, and you get to see different styles of play. There are players out there who'll be like, all right, I'm trying to find the Rivals of Waterdeep type game that I might really love, or the one that's more like a Critical Role, where there's more voice acting and things that are more like that, or ones that are more like having a tactical bent, and they love that type of game. They'll try a few different situations and tables because they're looking for the type of game that they really want, and they have that language to even talk about what is really exciting.
Yeah, absolutely, and that, like Shelley was saying, the fact that streaming has become so popular, and streaming of live play stuff has become so popular, gives people, as you're saying, Greg, the ability to see the diversity in the types of D&D that there is out there. And again, using your imagination and seeing how people can use their imagination and do stuff. Since I started playing Rivals, I started playing a game locally with some friends, one of whom is Charlie Hall. He is our DM.
Nice.
Oh, no
Polygon.
way.
Shout out to Charlie.
Polygon.
Charlie.
Yeah. And one thing that Charlie and his friends had been playing for a very long time, and we started a new campaign. But one thing that they do that we didn't do on Rivals, and that I had never done, was that he used grids and he used miniatures. And so we started using those in our adventure, and it helped really kind of paint the scene and set things up. But that was something that they brought with them from previous editions of D&D, and that they still carried on with them and have been able to use it successfully in 5e.
Yeah, you're right. That's really true. I love that you're playing with Charlie. Is he the dungeon master?
Yes, he is.
What's his style like?
His style is very different. It is let's see. So unassuming and dangerous.
Whoa. Wow. You know what? That is an excellent name for a stream.
for a new D&D
for a
stream?
new stream. I like it.
Yeah. Unassuming and dangerous.
Yeah, so you'll be sitting around with Charlie, and you'll be looking at a treasure case in one room, and you walk through the door, and he'll say, yeah, so 17 goblins are in this room. They're about to start attacking you. Roll for initiative. You're like, wait, what the hell just happened?
That
I
was
just
fast.
grabbing a banana. What?
17, that's a lot.
Right.
Fireball.
Yes, right. Yeah, we did that.
Bye-bye, goblins.
Yes. We actually did do that.
I know, right? And there's something about, I'm if you're using miniatures, having the 17
Oh yeah.
on there,
Yes,
that's almost, it's more terrifying than it would be if you just were describing it for some reason. That like
Right.
the wealth of plastic on the table.
Yes. Yes. And the great thing is, one of the players at our table has a 3D printer, so he's
Nice.
he's making minis as well, and that's another thing. Like, technology is so awesome, and it's allowed us to continue to be kids well into adulthood, because I'm playing with toys still, right? Like,
It's a replicator.
duh.
It's actually a replicator.
It is. It just, instead of seconds, it just takes hours. But
We'll get there. We'll get there one day.
we're on our way.
Exactly.
So I finally did finish watching the season 2 of Discovery, Star Trek
right.
Discovery. I'm a fan of Cicero's podcast that he's on, Discovery Debrief.
Thank you.
I listen to all the ones that are going through the episodes. I know
Awesome.
you guys got lots of extra stuff, which I've been like, I got to make sure and see the stuff that you guys are talking about before I listen in. But yeah, what a great timey-wimey jump that season 2 did. Not to go too spoilery, but
No, yeah. So not to go too spoilery, but to say this, we spent a lot of the first season, and shout out to the rest of my bridge crew on Discovery Debrief. Check us out at DSC Debrief on Twitter. We spent the first season talking about all of the people that were complaining about the fact that this was not Trek. This was not their Trek. This was not, and we went through myriad explanations of why that's not the case, because every new Trek seems to get that moniker, so that, it was kind of the initiation.
yeah.
But then season 2, we spent a lot of time talking about on our show about how much the writers, you can tell in the writers' room that they are fans of the canon, fans of the franchise, in ways that maybe even the people that are claiming it's not Trek aren't fans of the franchise. And they, in their infinite brilliance, I guess, they were able to find a way now. One of the big complaints was, here is this ship and this show that is set in this time that looks and feels and acts much more technologically advanced than everything else that is around it, since the show that is most closely associated in time with it is actually 50 years old. They figured out a way to get rid of that going forward, and so now you don't even have to worry about it, and it answered really quickly. It was able to answer a lot of the goofy questions that were kind of brought to the fore when they talked about who was going to be in the second season, and the guest characters that became involved, and the fact that the Enterprise was there. They figured all of that stuff out, and now all you're left with is a great show, and you have no idea what's going to happen.
Yes. All the and to bring it even a little bit more back to Dungeons and Dragons, what struck me by the end of season 2 of Star Trek Discovery was how the writers, and I don't know if this is true, but I kind of was interpreting this. They had a lot of data of the lore to go from, right? Like, of what was happening. Right. I just used 2 characters' names, so I didn't mean to. But there's a lot of lore in the background that, especially even what was written in season 1, that a dungeon master might have to do, right? There's a lot of stuff that's written about the Forgotten Realms, for example, that you can bring certain parts of it forward at certain times, but you can't bring it all forward at the same time while telling your own story. But they did such a great job of doing things that might have been interpreted as mistakes or missteps, and weaving it into something that felt, by the end of season 2, being like, Oh,
Yes.
that is like the Chris Perkins genius moment when you're like, you're bringing stuff from like 10 years ago, 15 to 45 years ago into what is informing this. So now what happened in episodes of the original series of Star Trek now has even more emotional weight because of what is
Absolutely.
being told in Star Trek Discovery Season 2. And I thought that was really brilliant. And it's only something that someone who trusts their imagination and the imagination of humans to be able to link stories together can really do.
Yes. They did in season 2 of Discovery something that I think was remarkable. They had a previously on where they brought up clips from The Cage, which was the pilot episode of Star Trek. So they probably had the oldest previously on in television history.
Right.
You know, the episode that preceded it happened 50 years ago.
Right, because that was the pilot that was never aired, right? In the 1962.
It was never aired on television. Well, it wound up being aired before Star Trek went off the air initially, but it's definitely available now, like on Netflix, or if you have CBS All Access, or wherever you can find all of the Star Trek shows.
So fascinating that they were able to bring it all together. It was really cool.
Yeah, and they were able to get it in, and it was awesome.
And also, if I mean, I'm not like I'm selling Star Trek to you, but it was a great D&D party, right? Like by the end, you're like, okay, here is our group of people who all have different relationships and skill sets, and now they're going to be thrust into this completely new universe, essentially, and have to fend for themselves, just like most D&D parties have to.
Right, and it's
the
there's
beginning
lots
of
of
every
unknowns.
adventure.
There are lots of dynamics that are there, both interpersonal and emotional, and man, we're gonna see what happens when they get presented with goofy scenarios. It's gonna be great.
So for your for season 5 of Rivals of Waterdeep, are you thinking of the group as an away team in Avernus?
No, I was not. I wonder if I should. I am. It is. You know what though? There are going to be, if you are a Star Trek fan, I will say, if you do watch The Cage, there will probably be some things that happen in my season that will remind you of The Cage.
Ooh,
wow,
interesting.
Yeah.
I'm liking all that. I'm and I'm like trying to guess of what it is, but well, I'll leave that to the listeners and the viewers. We're very excited. Again, it's September 22nd is when you will begin your first episode, right? And that's 10 a.m. Pacific time?
10 a.m. Pacific time, yes. 1 p.m. Eastern time.
Sweet.
Check your local listings.
Soon we'll be on CBS All Access as well.
That'll be the day. Right?
One day.
I am super excited. I love that you're jumping into the captain's chair for this. Any final things you want to leave us with as previews before we sign off here?
My season of, for all of the people that have been fans of Rivals of Waterdeep, my season will be different from everyone else's, I think. But it will still be Rivals. It'll still be the characters that you know and love. But we're going to be doing a bunch of crazy things. It's all coming from my brain. It's a scary place. It should be a lot of fun. And hey, if you hear me doing voices and you like some of those voices, this voice is for hire. So make sure you check out my social medias, and if you like me, you can get in contact with me.
I see you've got that professional screen there in front of you. Yeah. You're ready to go.
Yeah. Well, so this isn't even my VO mic. I've got a different voiceover microphone.
Well,
that's exciting. I can't wait. I love that as a new line. Voiceover stuff is super fun. Shelley is an amateur voiceover artist as well.
I mean, I don't know about amateur.
Well, you either do it or you don't.
Then I don't, Cicero.
Oh, stop it!
I don't. No, I really don't.
Your
No, like seriously.
Your C-3PO is really good. Though.
Oh dear. But I can only do it with the arm, so it's not really good for voiceover.
It's a physical art form. I understand that.
Go put your underwear on now.
Right.
That's how I used to have to talk to my son. We don't have the C-3PO underwear anymore.
I know they don't make them in his size anymore.
No,
Yeah.
they don't. I know, it's so sad.
So what's your what's your go-to for him now for voiceover?
Pika! That's
Love
all
it.
I got.
I love it.
I have one question for you.
Yes.
Why are you a Yankees fan?
Why am I a Yankees fan?
I may or may not have
Hey.
paid her to ask that question.
Well, I'm also not a Yankees fan.
No one should be.
I am.
Oh, well.
I'm not a fan. I'm sorry.
Why am I a Yankees fan? Because I love the sport of baseball. I love good taste. I love great teams. And I happen to be born in the South Bronx. I was born.
Oh, okay.
So I am a Yankee fan by blood. I was born 9 blocks from the stadium, and I've always been a fan. And to really prove my fandom, my parents and I we moved from the Bronx and wound up on Long Island in the 80s. Long Island is Mets country.
Oh yeah.
And I was a Yankees fan living in Mets country when the Mets were good. And so I got tormented, just merciless for being a Yankees fan. And the Yankees didn't make the playoffs. They had the best record throughout the decade of the 80s, had the best record in the American leagues, only made it to the postseason once, or actually twice, but then didn't do anything. And then, we became the Yankees again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's congratulations in advance for this year, because it looks like you got this one.
And no, it's the Astros, man. It's the Astros. I'm afraid of those guys.
Yeah.
I'm really afraid of them. But we're gonna give it a shot.
The Red Sox will be back next year, though. I'm pretty sure. So watch out.
The Mariners will not.
The Mariners will not.
It's never fun if the Red Sox are not in it. So you gotta beat the best to be the best.
Well, 1986 we'll remember forever as the Mets, beating us. But I totally understand where you're coming from as being a native for sure. I guess that makes sense. But
I guess.
yeah,
And you seem like a nice guy. So
not like most Yankees
yeah,
fans. So
seriously. Uncharacteristic.
We're all good on the inside.
how can people follow you on the Twitters? I don't know if we've said that.
We have not. I am the infamous Stubby Stan, STUBBYSTAN, on all of your social media platforms. You can find me there. All of the things that I am doing are in my bio there. Please go ahead and follow me. I say random things. I am the voice in your head.
You are now.
Yeah, exactly.
Do I have to pay you for that now that you're the voice for hire?
Hey, my rates are reasonable.
I didn't ask you to get in my head.
So, but hey, once I'm there, though, you're just like,
You're in it.
Like, oh yeah.
You're there now. So
You do
might
have
as
a
well.
very nice, soothing voice.
Oh, well, thank you. ASMR. All right.
Right. There you go.
New line of work.
Yeah. I'm going to hear that voice today when I'm at Marshall's.
Well, you can hear
yes,
it even.
you do need another macrame wall hanging.
I think you should start doing that too. Getting in people's.
Marshallnista.
Yeah. Those candles smell like sandalwood.
You
love
should buy
sandalwood.
12.
How about a frying
Do it now.
pan? Cast iron? What a deal.
Your friend Daphne is bad mouthing you right now. You should buy this knife.
Why are your pants so tight? Well, should we have had beans again?
Everyone in this room hates
That's
you
really
because
the-
of the beans you ate.
Everyone hates you. Oh, this is the voice in my head.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Cicero. I can't wait for September 22nd. I'm moving away
Me too.
from
Me
creepy
too.
Shelley voices. You're
It's
awesome.
Friday the
You
13th,
can
man.
move
You
away.
gotta-
That's right.
you
It's
gotta have-
Friday. Horror
Yeah.
is back. All right, man. Well, rock it, and we'll see you soon.
All right. Right on.
Awesome.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank
Bye,
you.
guys.
Take it easy.
Live long and prosper.
I don't know. I'm doing
Wow.
devil horns and Vulcans.
Live long and prosper. All right.
Live long and prosper, devil.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, we are going to take a short break. Thank you again to Cicero for sitting in on that interview. Lots of fun stuff happening in the Rivals of Waterdeep land. Definitely tune in at 10 a.m. on September 22nd. We are, again, going to break here and come back with Mr. Chris Perkins telling us some lore that we should know.
Yes.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
We'll be back in a couple